Hi, I'm presenting shape-changing fabric samples for interactive fashion design. I'm Audrey Girouard, a faculty member at Carleton University. This work was mainly completed by Daniela Vahid for her master's thesis with the collaboration of Lee Jones and Lois Frankel. As technology is integrated into all aspects of our lives, researchers are exploring emerging technologies in the field of fashion design. The substantial growth in the field of functional apparel design encourages researchers and fashion designers to incorporate technology within their design. In much of the previous work, e-textiles have required interdisciplinary knowledge, such as electrical engineering and computer science, to be successful. We propose simplifying the process with ready-to-use interactive garment samples that could minimize the need for technical assistance in the design of shape-changing clothing. Previous work has explored how fashion designers would like to use color-changing samples, but shape-changing samples are an underexplored area. In this work, we focus on inflatable shape-changing fabric samples with kinetic properties. We ask, how can inflatable fabric samples help designers explore potential application of shape-changing technology? We created 3 origami shape-changing samples and introduced them to 7 fashion designers. We then conducted design sessions and interviews to see how they would use this fabric samples. So to make the shape-changing fabric samples, and mainly to set the origami folds in the fabric, we drew the origami pattern on fusible web material and cutting into pieces. We ironed those pieces to the back of the fabric, then sandwiched the fabric between plastic origami sheets and secured the folds with wood clips. The fabric set for 2 or 3 days, and then when we opened the clip, the fabric held the planned shape. Each sample had a simple on-off switch to avoid the need for programming knowledge. The switch circuit included a small handheld air compressor, a balloon, and tube to blow the air under the fabric to make the unfolding kinetic motion possible. Using this method, we made 3 different samples for ideation sessions with fashion designers. We designed 3 shape-changing fabric prototypes based on origami art patterns that change their shape as they unfold and fold. We selected origami patterns because they have a demonstrated efficacy structure for shape-changing movements through folding and unfolding with fashionable aesthetic qualities. We applied 3 types of tessellation: the 8-crease water bomb, the 6-crease water bomb, and the pyramid. You can see them inflating and deflating on the slide. For our study, we worked with 7 fashion or textile designers that all had various fashion experience, some over 30 years and some more around 5 years of experience, sometimes in fabric design, sometimes in custom-made dresses, sewing and tailoring, or sketching garments. We video recorded ideation sessions where we presented the sample and asked them to create a garment or something else with them. And then we did thematic analysis of the results. Here you see one of those video recorded sessions, or at least a small clip of it. And what's interesting for you to notice is that as this participant explains what she would do with the fashion samples, she touches them. She plays with them. She explores their sizes. She explores how they might change and verbally explains what she would do with this fabric sample. So I'm going to point out 3 specific findings: the importance of tangible exploration, the need for samples to feel like fabric, and the importance of scale in fashion design. So if we think about the importance of tangible exploration, this is specifically of designers who work with their hands with various textiles. And each textile feels differently, drapes differently, has a different weight, and can afford to create various shapes on the body. And so the fabric samples really need to be interesting to touch at. And that's exactly how they worked with them. Participants tangibly explored the features and affordances of the swatches, whether they could fold on their own or whether they would create rounded shapes. They touched them and felt their various qualities. Which leads to another finding, which is that the need for the sample to feel like fabric. They wanted the fabric samples to be soft, and they wanted to be able to modify the fabric samples because that's the general type of fabric samples that they work with. Before they buy meters and meters of a specific textile, they get a small sample and that they can cut and they can tape and they can play around with. So the participant on the left is currently explaining how she wanted to stitch around the fabric and cut it as a corset, while the one on the right expected the 8-crease water bomb fabric to change the length. So the fabric sample that they were provided wasn't exactly what they wanted in terms of size. That's normal. The importance of scale in fashion design is also something quite important to take into account. Using a mini mannequin provided a framework for participants to use different scenarios while prototyping. In particular, it helped them to imagine large-scale interventions such as skirts, even with a small sample. But it also limited the type of interactions due to the scale of the model. So having mannequins and samples of different scales could help to better support the process and embodied practices our participants were trying to explore. For example, placing a swatch on their own body to explore a design concept, and you'll see that in the next example. So the shape-changing samples inspired quite a few designs. So many participants made a skirt with the 6-crease water bomb shape-changing fabric that's on the left, because the fabric the sample was really easy to fold or at least put around an object, in this case, the mannequin's legs. The participant on the right created a pregnant lady using the pyramid fabric, which is due to the affordances of what the shape change produced. Back to our earlier video sample of our participants, here she places the fabric sample on her shoulder to see how it would do. And he was explaining how she would make a really strong shoulder, a little bit like a female gladiator. And then she goes on to explain and mimic that she wouldn't use it here, she wouldn't use it on the stomach because it does not enable fashionable. It's not an area that it wants to be enhanced by current fashion standards. So this preliminary case study explores how shape-changing inflatable fabric samples can help fashion designers explore affordances and opportunities for designing with shape-changing samples without engineering or computer assistance. We explored this research gap through a preliminary user case study with 7 experienced designers. We created 3 origami patterns that fold and unfold and observed designers interacting with these samples in a design session. We found that designers demonstrated both various approaches to the potential of the fabric samples to help them envision shape-changing clothing and furniture design concepts. Our results suggest addressing these design perspectives in developing shape-changing fabric samples that could assist fashion designers with little to no experience with electronics. We propose that samples of shape-changing fabrics similar to a prototype could be a potential solution to help designers integrate technology into their current practices without the need for external help. Specifically, future work should include the creation of shape-changing fabric sample kit, which provides larger and more varied patterns for interacting sample materials with soft samples that feel like fabric and that can be modified as part of working with the samples. We hope that the tangible exploration of shape-changing swatches provides several insights that could lead to recommendation for other researchers working on interacting fashion toolkits. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions.